So again, come to the Falklands. To get the one Vulcan to bomb the Falkland Islands took, I think it was 14 Victors, which was virtually the entire Victor fleet. So all the Victors went down to the Ascensions, a squadron of Vulcans that left no air-to-air refueling capability in the UK. They're supposed to be getting the VC-10 tankers. They were still in development. So what they decided was to convert one squadron of Vulcans, which they were in the middle of scrapping, and convert them to a tanker. And basically all they'd done to do that was take out, in the bomb bay, put 3 drum tanks, take out the electronic countermeasures from the back and build a dog kennel around the outside because it didn't fit in there properly. Apparently it was a lot more stable in the Vulcan than the Victor, and a lot of people enjoyed tanking for it. And after this conversion, the aircraft remained in service then until 1984 in the tanking role. So once all the squadrons disbanded in 84, they decided they had some aircrew left over. They had a spare aircraft at Wallington. Well, may as well go and do the airshow display circuit, you know, just show off the Vulcan before they finally put it to bed. That became so popular that they decided to actually form the Vulcan display flight back after the end of 1984. And the aircraft they originally had was XL426, but that was coming to the end of its finite life. So they decided, oh, we better have a look to find out which ones we hadn't already scrapped. And there was 2, 558 and 560, sat on the scrap heap at Marham awaiting disposal. So they had a quick look, and I think 560 had a couple of more hours left, nothing much, only about 20 or 30 hours, which wouldn't make much do. But when they realised 558 there, and it was the first, they decided, make it the first and the last. So she was reconverted back then into the displays, and since 1986, if any of you have ever seen a Vulcan displaying, it is 558. And there she is. That's when she was converted back from the tanker role back into the conventional bomber, as you look. And it used to have a rear fuel tank in the bomb bay when you used to see the display with 5,000 pounds of fuel purely as ballast to keep the centre of gravity of the aircraft the same, because they ripped all the electronic countermeasures out the back. And it had a nice paint scheme with acrylic paint and all that, so it's showing a lot better in the displays. And we still actually got the paint on, which was done in 1985. It's still on there at the minute. So it's lasted quite well. Could do a good touch-up though. So obviously it was the last display season then in '92. Went all around the country, all the displays, formed up with the Red Arrows. Went round with Farewell in the Bombay, which I put there, made people cry, it got told off. And then in '93, it actually was auctioned off and bought by the Waltons. A family that live in Leicester, Bruntingthorpe, and it was the father who decided he wanted to keep the aircraft and he wanted to keep it flying. So not only did he buy the aeroplane, he bought over 800 tons of spares and as much paperwork as he can find and we could borrow. We actually put there so we had full provenance of the aircraft. So it's actually the oldest complete Vulcan in existence, and it's the only flying V-force in the world. So a little bit about the project and the stages. Obviously we applied to the HLF originally back in, I think it was 2002. We applied for the grant, they told us no. A couple of 100,000 people emailed them, phoned them. We got a court injunction against us telling them not to contact them, said it's not us, it's the general public. 2 months later, I had a phone call, would you like to apply again and can we help you fill in the application form? So we reapplied, and then it came through then in June '04 that we'd actually got the grant. We estimated it to be 3.5 million, and it would give us 3 quarters, which was 2.73. It would take us a major problem, probably take us, we expected about a year to do the work, and then we'll have the operation for about 6 to 10 years, we hope to fly, and then once we finished, it will go back into the museum and then hopefully just be on static. So before we actually started all this work, we had to do a feasibility study. There's an aircraft that's been sat there for 8 to 10 years. It'd been inside, been outside. We had to actually have a look at it to see what it's like. So we checked all the paperwork. The CAA said that every item had to be overhauled by the original manufacturer, so we had to find them. And some of these built these things back in the 50s and 60s. So we've done all that, and there's lots of bits and pieces that went on, and it took about 3 years archaeology finding these people and working out if we could actually, was it feasible to actually go ahead with the project. The main reason we did get the go ahead, again, the Vulcans had foresight and they got the licensed engineer. So every 28 days, over them 7 or 8 years, they used to do anti-deterioration checks, fire up the engines, run all the flying controls, put power on the aircraft. It's like your car sat outside, you leave it there for 6 to 10 months, it's right there to start. But you go up and start it once or twice a week or once a month, jump in, you can drive off. So hence, they've done all that, and they've done the structural inspection on it. It's no use saying, yeah, we'll do it and find out it's the right rust bucket. So they've done that, and they've done various testing of the systems as well. The main build-up of this aircraft is magnesium alloy, and what it likes to do, it likes to go back to its natural state, which is dust, and this is actually part of the main spar, main strengthening bit, and we found some exfoliation on it, a little bit worried about it, so we ground it out and took out a couple of thou, and thought, well, we better ask BAE Systems, who was the design authority, is that all right? They said you can take an inch off, it's 7 inches thick, it's a solid lump. You can take an inch off and you wouldn't twitch. So I was quite happy with that one. Engines, now these are our limiting factor. They're supplied by Rolls-Royce will give us engines. We only had the original 4 in the aircraft, and one of them blew up when we were doing a feasibility study. But while we was looking around, we knew while we was in the service, we had spares. So they went to Stafford and says, I understand you've got some Vulcan engines. No, we're not. We've done a full inventory check. There's nothing here. I said, do you mind if we look? Because I know there is. And there they were, 8 brand new engines, sat in the box, didn't know nothing about them, with full paperwork. So we'll have them, and I think we bought them for a couple of thousand each. I think they're worth a couple of million each now. But we have 8 zero-life engines, and that's our limiting factor on the aircraft. Rolls-Royce destroyed all the jigs. These engines were overhauled in 1980, and after that, all the rigs, because they come out of service, have all gone. We have more technical information than Rolls-Royce at present. So although they have helped and supporting us with no technical objections and engineering assistance by verbal discussions, they cannot physically help us rebuild or do anything to the engine. So hence the 8 to 10 years. As I said, we expect it to cost us £3.5 million. And I said this was originally done in 2000, so you'll see a little bit of inflation coming in a while. Another reason why it came through very well is the second time we actually applied for the funding, Cosford was actually applying for a Cold War museum. And if you haven't been, I can thoroughly recommend going there. It's an excellent site, it's free to go in as well. And basically, because they have the Cold War museum, we are now the living part of that museum. It's part of the national curriculum, so we're hopefully going around with the education, the schools and various bits and pieces, pushing this, but that's one place I could recommend to go. Okay, a little bit about this. The Vulcan Sky Trust. The Waltons couldn't get the money out of the lottery grant because they weren't a charity or anything. So the trust was formed to actually run the project and do the project, and the